heard about this new thing, AI. Well,
Brand
but
new.
right,
Just
I
came out.
mean, what do people need to know, particularly business owners? I know we talk to a lot of different people in terms of, developing a go mindset and all that. But for business owners, cut through the bullshit. What do you need to know about AI right now?
So I was just in a meeting with OpenAI, and here are the things that you have to think about as a business. One, AI is going to be the new Google, if you will. Like queries are starting from not search engines per se anymore. Definitely people use Google, but they're also originating in ChatGPT and Claude,
Yeah.
and because they provide so much more contextual information, and you could drill down on that information a lot easier. So if you are a business, you have to understand how to optimize for these AI engines. The thing that I learned from OpenAI this week is they're actually building their own index. They currently, right now, rely on another index. They didn't disclose what index it is. What I mean by that is they're using the likes of a Google or a Microsoft to power their information with regards to things that should show up in search. Now, the way that they work is they scraped the entire web and all these articles, and they could really ingest information at a rapid pace and decipher that back to you. So all the information you're getting exists in some form on the web. So then it becomes, well, how do you stand out amongst your peers? And a few things that we're trying, and I think you could do today, is one, have a very strong website platform and content that has a lot to do with what you do. Meaning, like, do not be cute on the homepage of your website and use all this language that sounds fancy but doesn't really tell the consumer or tell these engines, for that matter, what it is that you do as a business. So for example, Go Brewing, we're a non-alcoholic brewery crafted for a better tomorrow. If you are a search engine of any sort, you're going to come there, you're going to see it, you're going to understand us. There's also inside search, there's schema, and there's all this code that has been around for a long time that you can basically in a structured way also tell the search engines. That's what's called a meta title, a meta description. These are all these schema snippets, but there's a lot more. You can get descriptions, you can get hours of operation if you're a brick and mortar business, and all these things that help these engines really pull your information because they have to scan a lot of it very quickly. It's really all this schema that's in these listings that then push Google Shopping, including images and all of those things. So it's going to be like that on steroids. So you have to make sure that you have a very clean, structured website and it's optimized and it's modern.
So I want to break this into two vantage points, from the side of the business and then ultimately from the side of the customer, right? So on the business side, are you saying that you're going to need to build websites differently when people are using AI search more, or that there'll be new solutions within how websites are coded and whatnot, or we don't know yet?
My call out is if you're on a modern system like Shopify, they are doing things, which I'll get into in a minute, that not only will help you show up in search engines, but transact in these AI engines.
Okay.
Like literally, you won't have to leave ChatGPT. You'll be able to conduct commerce from there. If you were on a dated platform, let's say you were on WooCommerce. Like say you're on that, that's a plugin that goes to WordPress, and I'm sure they're evolving. I don't know exactly where they're at on things, but let's say you were there and they weren't keeping up with this tech, or you had to upgrade and your code's so dated, like WordPress, if you're not updating things constantly, like it could get dated quickly. So say you're not in the last version, you may not have the ability to show up in these engines because of that reason, because it's just not technically sound enough for you to be able to show up. I would definitely audit your website and see where you rank and where you stand. And what you did earlier is you did it anonymously. Don't go to Google and type in your website or a query around your website and think like you're ranking number one. It doesn't work like that. There's tricks you can do where you can query something and at the end of it, you can do at PWS equals 0, which stands for at personalized web search equals 0. You could do it in an incognito window. And if you do those two things, you'll see a different set of results because you're basically telling Google that you don't want them to look at your personalized web search results because
Right.
that'll change it substantially. Very similar to these AI engines.
Right. And that's probably all true, whether you say you don't have an e-commerce business, same thing where, you know, how you put together your website, content and structure, call it, is going to need to be reviewed.
Yep.
Is
And that
like the big takeaway.
holds true for any business. It also lends to the fact of making good quality content, which is increasingly hard because people are leveraging AI at scale to create content.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we do is we truly write original content. We might use like AI, but it's not highly curated by AI. And then we'll publish it. And a good example is I wrote this blog a year ago, and it was about how do you feel when you don't drink for 100 days?
Hmm.
And that blog gets 5,000 to 6,000 hits a month.
Wow.
And drives people to our website because it's on our website.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's with Shopify, you can create a blog, create content, and you write that content to show up organically for those queries. It drives awareness, and that's called earned media, meaning you don't really pay per click, you don't pay per impression.
I want to come back to that in a second, but I want to frame it in regards to the customer or the user. So you do a nice job of talking about the difference of intent when someone is using search, Google, versus they're on social media. Can you explain what that difference is, the way that your expertise understands it? And then how is it going to be different with AI?
It's a good question. I think it's a nice hybrid blend of the two. So when you're in Google, think about yourself as a consumer. You're typically not going to type into Google like best men's clothes. You're going to be more specific, and your intent is to find something, get that information, get to that website or thing, and then leave. So you have a transactional intent most of the time, unless you're obviously you could be researching or
Sure.
but you're like, you know what you want to find.
You're looking for an answer.
You're looking for an answer. In these social networks, you're not necessarily looking for an answer. You're being entertained by content.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're being served up ads that are related to your own history or related content that the algorithms think you like. And the more you engage with those, the more of that content you'll get fed, obviously, because their whole job is to keep you on their website. So then they could show you more ads because those ads generate revenue.
Sure.
So that's how the whole game works. When you look at something like ChatGPT, you got this blend of both where you're going to go in there and ask it a question, and you've probably seen this. And after that question, it might prompt you and push you to the next thing.
Yeah.
For example, if I'm like, I want to shoot a vintage video and really want to make it look vintage. So it'll tell me like it'll ask me what editor I use, tell it the editor, and then it'll give me certain instructions. It'll ask me the camera, give me that. And then it'll say, do you want me to show you a shopping list of the other things that you need to really make this happen?
Right.
And the answer is yes. Well, today that shopping list then links out to these third-party places like a website. In the very near future, all that's going to stay contained within those systems. Yeah. So like social platforms, they want to keep you there as well.
This is what I was thinking about when you were talking about this blog in particular, that maybe 10 years ago, you would counsel people like, here's the information you need on your site so that Google will find you. And it's, you know, like you're just cramming in search terms and shit like that. And there's no real narrative and blah, 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 blah. Versus social now and entertaining people versus like, hey, I wrote this blog about what it feels like to be sober for 100 days, that kind of thing. And to me, it's not a question of how do I get found within search? It's more like how do I be relevant within search? And maybe content like this is what it feels like to be sober for 100 days is the relevancy.
Yeah, it's interesting. So Google came out with what's called the knowledge graph, which was like let's call it the baby to this whole thing that we're in right now. And the knowledge graph gives you information right in Google search results. And that was like groundbreaking happened. And all of us SEO people and businesses were afraid that that was going to take away traffic to our website. Google's goal is to keep you on their website. So now they're like, well, I'm going to just give you the information.
Yeah.
And 8 years ago, 10 years ago, they fed you the information and it was just text and there'd be a link at the bottom and you could click to find more, but you could generally get your answer there. One of the ways we built our early marketing business is we wrote this blog of like, what is a UTM code? And we would get 30,000 visitors a month that would search it because Google's knowledge graph showed it because it was good content.
Yeah.
And then people would read it and then they would click to the link. So it never took away traffic. It actually highlighted our traffic more. So I think similar thing's going to happen with ChatGPT. It's going to show you the answer there, and it's going to give you a lot of information about it. And it will reference through a link where you can find more of said product or thing. So if you are in ChatGPT and you say, are there any good gluten-free non-alcoholic beers, I would bet chances are good that we're going to show up for that. It'll give information about us, then it'll show a link to our website. The difference is in 6 months or even less time than that, you're going to see us and many others that there's going to be integration with Shopify, and you'll be able to buy your gluten-free beers right there, not even leave that experience.
Do you think that you're showing up in that query in chat because of the content on your website, or also because of other content that's out there? Like maybe this goes back to the indexing you were talking about. Like Google, I think we trust this. Here's the validated answer that's kind of crowdsourced. We know this is the best answer.
What's interesting is when we talked to OpenAI this week, they said the website is going to be a very important piece of this.
Your own website.
Your own website. I am very skeptical of that, because if that is the case and that's a litmus test, people can manipulate their website all day long and come up with anything that they want. So there's certainly going to be signals, just like there is for Google, from external places to validate that, in fact, they're giving a good answer. Because imagine if you go to ChatGPT and it's like, yeah, whoever wrote the most content wins. Google had the same issue earlier on.
Right.
You could spam Google and you would show up and rank 1 for everything.
Right.
Then it valued quality over quantity. Same thing with these engines. So I think it's really important to look at it holistically and get validation from other third-party websites, PR, media. I will say there's also a scarcity element to it. Why would we show up for that and maybe not another phrase? Because there's not many making non-alcoholic, gluten-free beers. So that goes back to, like, if you're starting a business and you know this is the future and you're going against some formidable competitors, the likelihood of you showing up for these searches in the short term, unless they're very specific, it's going to be hard because you have all this other validation in these years of linking. So if you're creating, if your idea is to compete with Olipop, Poppy, let's say, now you got Coke coming out with it, you got a bunch of others. Everything's possible. It's just a matter of, like, how much harder is it going to be to show up for that stuff?
Yeah.
Unless you're really different and you could prove you are. But if you were like the first high sugar soda, maybe reverse it, right? And someone's searching for that, which no one would. But just for sake of example, it's going to be a different experience because you're the only one doing it.
We were wandering around a Kroger when we went to visit my daughter at school recently, and I had nothing to do because she was buying all this stuff. And I came across Jolt. And I was like, oh, this is like the original, like,
I miss Jolts.
Energy drink kind of thing.
So I think in closing, though, what businesses can do is make sure you're not negating your website. You got to take care of the foundation. Make sure that it is technically sound. If you're on Shopify, good news is that Shopify does a lot of this good stuff for you, and they're working with these partners like OpenAI and others. Because the nice thing about Shopify is they understand that they want to be where the customers are despite your website, meaning that the customer wants to stay on OpenAI and shop. That might be the future. Like if you're looking for clothes, like I'm going to a wedding next week, right? And I'm like, I really need a nice tie with that. It already has the context of what you're purchasing. It's going to be so much better.
Yeah.
So it's like, why are you going to go to these other websites? Okay, if that's true, are you going to fight that, or are you going to embrace it and allow your products to show up there and be a part of this ecosystem? And the answer is, like, you definitely should, because that is where it's going, the lower friction, a creative, I would say, like, experience that we didn't really have. You'd have to go to all these different places to get that same benefit.
All right. So the big takeaway is pay attention to how you're showing up in chat and be deliberate about the way it's going to change, and write more good content that's going to be relevant.
Yeah. And a power tip at the end that I'm exploring with now is publishing within these platforms. So like Claude, for example, you can create a piece of content and you could publish it, and it actually publishes to the web and it can't get indexed. So if you think about how easy that could be and low friction, I think it's very beneficial to try because it's arguably free and it doesn't take a lot of work to do that. So
will you be able to track web traffic then from that published article?
If there's a link back to your website, absolutely. You would look at referral and Google Analytics.
So you publish an article that has a link to your website and it's published to Claude or whatever, then you can go back through your own website dashboard and go, hey, we're getting a bunch of traffic from that article that was on Claude.
Yeah.
That is a good tip.
And I don't know how much longer this will work, if it's a forever thing. seems like it's a big hack right now to be able to push something to an index, which is really easy to do because you can have an idea for an article, publish it within 5 minutes. You could do it at scale. So you could come up with different queries that you want to show up for. And then write the article about those queries. So that's something that I'm doing right now. So for example, like, what are the best beers for dry January, And I'll put our competitors' beers in there, but ours be up the top of that list, right?
Yeah.
There'll be an article that could get published that could have relevance that maybe ChatGPT picks up because it's published Claude, or maybe no one does. But the reality is it's still published to the web. It exists. The chances of it getting picked up are much greater than if you didn't do it.
100% greater.
100% greater.
All right. That is a good pro tip to end on. Thanks, man.